I've got the minute, Sean.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I forwarded them around, so hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at them. Mm-hmm. All right. So thank you for joining us for this meeting of the Advisory Finance Committee, the first meeting of fiscal year 2021. We are here remote on Google Meet. And let me say, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation. The details of this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website, and it can be viewed on the Westborough TV YouTube channel, as well as on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. In the event that you are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website the video recording and other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right. This meeting is called to order. I will review the agenda. First, we'll cover minutes from the last meeting of July 13th. We'll then discuss other AFC business. One is voting on a new vice chair of the Advisory Finance Committee. And then we also have the town manager, Christy Williams, and Selectman Marshall here to talk about the special town meeting warrant coming up and the Eli Whitney Street property and the acquisition of that property. And then following that, we'll discuss potential fall meeting dates up through December, and we'll review the liaison assignment sheet I sent around to confirm that the information is correct and as it currently stands, and then we can discuss updates to it, but I would probably wait to assign new folks until our next meeting since we're missing a couple members, including our newest member. After that, we'll discuss future draft agendas. We'll have liaison reports, and then we will adjourn. With that, do I have a motion for the minutes of meeting number 37 on July 13th?
I move to accept the minutes for meeting number 37 on July 13th, 2020.
Thank you very much. Second?
Bradley, second.
All right. I will go around the room. Ms. Hensley, your vote?
Yay, yes.
All right. Mr. Beretti?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Bradley, yes.
Mr. Hugel?
Yes.
And Keogh, yes. Let's see, am I missing anyone? I think that's everybody so far, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, vote is 5-0-0. Okay. So Town Manager Williams and Selectman Marshall, would you like to take over to discuss the special town meeting warrant?
Thank you for having us. This is Selectman Marshall, and Christy, I know, is on. There she is.
Hi. I have a couple quick slides to show you, so I'm just pulling those up right now. But I think Sean had sent out to you in the email the draft town meeting warrant. So you'll note that there was no date on the town meeting warrant. So we're still working with the seller of the property to get some things finalized. But we do intend to have a special town meeting in September. Let me just, sorry. So the Board of Selectmen did execute the purchase and sale agreement. So that's been signed by both parties. And they executed that on August 4th. And obviously that's contingent on many things, one of them being town meeting approval. So, okay, I'm just gonna share my screen here. So we have the one article right now for the special town meeting. This is just a map showing the property that we're talking about. So it's that large piece of property in the middle of that map across the street from the Fail School, which is over here. So it's approximately 66 acres. It's a priority parcel on the open space plan. And acquisition of this contributes to the open space corridor. So you'll see that there are other open space parcels that surround the Eli Whitney property, or we call it the Daybury property. And some of them are owned by the town. Very similar to the Belknap Street property, we are looking to move the majority of the property into under the care and control of the Conservation Commission. So it would be protected under Chapter 97. That's a state protection, so that anything that we wanted to do on that property in the future, you would have to go to the state legislature and receive an act of the legislature in order to do any sort of construction or anything like that. So it's very well protected. Certainly the selectmen intend for this to be open space, but that small shape in the corner, that 4.72 acres, that fronts on Eli Whitney Street, and that we would propose to be under the care and control of the selectmen for general municipal use, specifically for parking and access to trails, similar again to what we did on the Belknap Street property. You'll remember that in the middle of the Belknap Street property, there was that funnel-shaped piece of property for utilities that also flared out at one end for potential parking and access to the site. The price under the purchase and sale agreement is $2.3 million, and we're proposing that this money comes out of the same available funds as we're using for Belknap Street property. So this chart here sort of shows you the use of that money. So the first being open space. We are taking $300,000 out of open space for Belknap Street. And then we are proposing to take the $750,000, so that would bring it down to a balance of about $1,300 for this property. Walkup Robinson, a couple years ago, town meeting authorized a borrow to be paid back with Walkup Robinson money to purchase property at Mill Road. That still has not happened yet, but we are accounting for that with that $450,000, and then also the $300,000 for the Belknap Street property. And $750,000 for this piece of property we're talking about. And then the sale of real estate account, we were taking $400,000 for the Belknap, also $5,000, if you recall, for the off Grove Street property that was related to the disposition of the Lyman Street School, and then $800,000 of that for this property. And so that's where the $2.3 million would come from. Use of these funds was approved by the Open Space and Walkup Robinson committees last Wednesday, August 12th. So our timeline, as I said, the selectmen have executed the purchase and sale agreement. We'll be doing a survey of the property. We'll create that A&R plan for conveyance, which would separate out that 4.72 acre lot. And then we would post a special town meeting. So as you know, we need to post the special town meeting warrant for 14 days. The selectmen, we've been told that the survey will take about 3 weeks. And so we just need to sort of line up those dates and have the selectmen pick the meeting, obviously working with the moderator to make sure that he's available. And then you also have that draft warrant article. We'll also provide a draft motion. Like I said, we just got the approval from those two committees this past Wednesday, and I was away, but the motion would be very similar to what you saw with the Belknap Street property, with those amounts coming out as I presented. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Do folks have any questions? We can go in order, I think. Paul, would you like to ask one first?
Oh, sure. Didn't we approve a warrant article to do an appraisal of this property about a year or two ago? And if so, what was the result of that?
So we did approve a warrant article in the fall of 2018 to do an appraisal, which we did. Let me just pull it up.
Thank you.
It was $25,000.
That was the cost of the appraisal.
Yeah.
Is that what you were asking?
Not the property.
Yeah. Is that what you were, that's not what you were asking though.
No, it wasn't.
I didn't
I knew that, and I wondered why that cost so much, but now we're gonna find out. I hope.
So the appraisal was just over $1 million. The property was most recently on the market for, I believe, 3.9 million.
And what's it's not right in front of me, the price again, that
2.3.
2.3.
2.3.
Yeah.
Jody, do you have any questions?
As long as it's a pregnant pause, I guess I'll ask, if we're gonna spend 25,000 for an appraisal, what makes us think we could just kind of ignore it if that's not the right term?
I mean, I'll respond, and then Shelby can also respond. But certainly, this has been a priority parcel for many years. It has been on the market. Since 2012, it's been on the market for 3.5, 5.7, 4.5. So we have been in discussions with the sellers for a long time. This is consistent with what we're spending on Belknap, because Belknap is about half the size of this property, which we're paying $1 million for. I think that the board and we really feel that this is a significant piece of property that we certainly think is an asset to the community.
Yeah, Paul, I'll chime in here and say we've had lots of discussions as we were working through the negotiation in our executive session, obviously without conveying all that detail here. I'll just sort of summarize that it's a very unique property, and the potential use of that property for development, there were lots of discussion around what the potential could be, not just for that property, but for contiguous properties that could create not a cul-de-sac option, but could create a road through, and thus would potentially lead to more development. Keep in mind that it's, and I haven't personally walked the terrain, but as I understand from our conservation officer, it's parts of it are rugged, parts of it are meadow, parts of it there are wetlands, so it's very, very diverse. But that having been said, someone kind of with the right, potentially the right plan, the right pockets, could potentially come forward with a plan that would develop it. And one of the factors we certainly considered is the impact that it would have on developing and the addition of school-age children to the schools. And if I don't have that number right in front of me, but I believe that sort of the last calculation was somewhere between $16,000 and $17,000 per student per year that's added to our school system. If you take that and divide that into the 1.3 difference, between appraisal and the purchase price that we landed on, you can kind of quickly do the math and see, how, if you will, if we were to add students, how quickly we could eat into that difference. So kind of all things considered, that we really felt that, and to Christy's point, this also being a high priority, high value open space, one of the few remaining really large spaces that also connects to other properties that the town owns, as well as others that maybe the Fame Mountain property, I think is what it's referred to. Again, I'm not a townie, so for those watching, forgive me. But it also connects to that. So really looking at this really as a 100-year purchase for an investment for the town. I hope that answers your question.
Jody, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple pretty simple ones. This is 67 acres, is that correct?
66.15.
66.15, yeah.
66 point what? 15?
15.
Okay, that's a lot of acres. I noticed in the balances in the accounts that the open space account is being brought down to, near zero. And curious, how does open space get replenished? How does that fund get replenished? And where does it come from, and then how does it get replenished?
So it was an appropriation several years ago at town meeting. I don't know the year. One of the things that I've talked to the chair of the open space committee about, and as we're looking through changing our method for our policy and sort of our practice with the capital plan, is including setting aside money for open space going forward. Capital plan policy has always said that it includes acquisition of property, but in my time with the town, it never has. And so I think that we put money into a capital stabilization account, saving for large fire department apparatus or other things, we should be thinking about putting money aside for the land acquisition.
That's great. That's good to know. Thank you for that. I have nothing else.
Thank you, Jody. Mike, how about you?
No, my questions were answered in the presentation, so I'm good.
Okay. Thanks very much. Andrew.
Sure, thank you. So my understanding of the Belknap property is that there would be very little new cost to the town to support that, because most of it was going to remain uncultivated, undeveloped. It was going to be very much the open space that it was intended to be. Do we have, I think I already heard conversation about a parking lot that'll be part of this one. And that's going to be a couple $100,000 potentially, although I don't know obviously the size. Are we talking about developing anything that'll require, whether it's Parks and Recs or B&G or any of the other departments to have an ongoing recurring cost to support this?
The only thing that we're concerned about, and why we're holding that land aside, is for parking and access. However, we do know that, as you stated, it would take an investment in building that parking and creating that access. It's very, very difficult to get land out of Chapter 97 protection, but we could at some point in the future transfer that remaining 4.72 acres or a portion of it into Chapter 97 at a future town meeting, if we find that we're not using it. There are other access points that we might take advantage of, but we think that in terms of long-term planning, it's wise for the town to hold back a small portion of the property that fronts on Eli Whitney.
Right. And I think, Andrew, to your question, we don't know what those cost estimates are at this time because we haven't, spec'd that in terms of parking, et cetera.
Thank you.
Just put it back up so you can see the.
Andrew, any other questions?
I appreciate you asking. No, I think that was it. I guess in my own mind, there's a question that arises about, well, we've done the math about if these were going to turn into school children at $16,000 per year, how many kids does that add to cost? Well, if we're going to be developing, never mind the one-time hit for a parking lot, if we're going to be developing a portion of this territory that requires a new person, a new head within DPW or new equipment or anything else like that, then there's an offsetting cost that we can think about, not in children, but in other recurring costs going forward. And I think it sounds like a fantastic acquisition, but I'm leery to just unequivocally support this without having a better sense of if there's going to be a residual cost or recurring cost.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Andrew, great point. This is Shelby. Let me be clear from the selectman's perspective. The reason why we're reserving the 4.72 and specifically the way that it's designed on the drawing that you saw outlined in yellow is to create the maximum, most effective way of having M1 or municipal property for parking, knowing that the topography, particularly right off of Eli Whitney, there's actually a pretty precipitous drop as you go from Eli Whitney back into the property. So that's sort of the safest way, if you will, the most conservative way to divide the property, to reserve some for municipal use, but there's no intention of creating additional headcount or expenses other than those expenses that would benefit the use of passive recreation and access to that, if in fact we actually even need to do that. There may, as Christy already mentioned, there are other access points that we may be able to use to get to that property through other town-owned resources, but that has to be, scoped out, as we go forward. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much, Shelby. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Also, the 2.3 million is the purchase price. So any additional sort of construction or anything like that would have to come before town meeting for an appropriation.
The other thing I'll add, and hopefully my friends on school committee in the schools will agree with this, but if you think about trail access and after school use once Fails is done, we fully anticipate that it's possible people will use Fails as an overflow parking to walk up to that property, because there is a trail, an old carriage trail or something, I forgot what it's called, Christy, but that comes right off of Eli Whitney, those more familiar with it. So it's possible that, in off hours, if you will, for the few people that would park there initially, that they may be, using the school as they would any other parking lot to access, fields and such.
Well, and Shelby, you and I both are being on the school committee for the work on Fails. I think that we're aware of the acute shortage of parking that exists under the best circumstances at Eli Whitney, at Fails.
Yep.
The idea of this being developing parking there, is there a coordinated conversation with the
and I
school
want
about
to be clear. Not during school hours, that sort of thing. I'm just saying that one might imagine people on the weekend using, just like they do for they go to the high school and they play tennis, right? So they're using it during non-school hours. There has been conversation, as you're aware, Andrew, as a result of COVID and parking and carpooling requirements per the state for the workforce relevant to the Fails construction project, as to whether or not, if we were to have this property, if any of it in that M1 zone could be used for parking. But that's kind of way out. We don't even own the property right now. As I said, we haven't, the land right there off of Eli Whitney may not even be, even if there were trees cut down, it might not even be suitable for, like parking. So we're trying to conservatively reserve some land without taking away from the open space benefit. So there is a level of coordination there, but we don't want to get ahead of our skis before we actually own the property.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can I also confirm then that land that is being set aside would be in potentially complementary to parking at Eli? Or is it, I was trying to picture the map where the land was, and I'm trying to juggle between two maps. But if we were to add 20 spots there, for example, is that something that would be of benefit to Fales?
It would not, I mean, I don't want to speak for a future decision, but I wouldn't imagine we're talking anything paved. I mean, when you think of sort of access, although we do have to think about ADA accessibility, the carved out area would be some sort of parking, but I would imagine initially it would be gravel, but again, we don't know. And I don't know that it would be used for in-school access or overflow parking or anything like that. It is close enough to that because it's right up the hill.
I think the conversation we're having right now is the exact reason why we're proposing to reserve the parcel or the portion of the property that fronts on Eli Whitney, because there could be some opportunity in the future.
Right, but you could imagine if there was access that, the fail students and faculty would have benefit to that for part of their learning and all of that.
Well, and just given the proximity to the school and given what I know has been a challenge for working within a fairly limited footprint, I guess it's too early to pile, or the time is wrong to pile a whole bunch of dirt from the school there, so opportunity missed. But looking ahead, is there an opportunity to use this space to complement school grounds, or is that outside the scope of what would apply for the conservation designation or whatever designation we're giving the area?
Yeah, Christy, you can help me on this, but no, this would be under the care and control of the Board of Selectmen in terms of that property outlined in yellow. And certainly, it would be space that anyone could cross over and use, but it wouldn't be incorporated into the school property. I mean, they could use it, but it wouldn't be incorporated specifically.
Thank you very much for the comprehensive answers. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Beth, how about you? Any questions?
Well, I had one. Andrew attacked it a lot. So I'm thinking that I just want to make the comment that this seems like it could be potentially really useful on on days like going buggy, that Fails having an event and Eli Whitney can't handle the number of parents and parking and, so I want to say that's a plus, even though it's conservation, if there is access, because some parents are willing to walk a reasonable distance, but there's certainly an excess of cars on Eli Whitney at times. So I guess I'm generally in favor of this, and I'm sorry about the technology difficulties today. So thank you.
Beth, the good news is Fales will have more parking when it's done than it does currently. So some of that will be addressed, but you're exactly right. If we were to develop that, they can, right, if you build it, they will park, whoever said that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Yes. And I think you mentioned earlier that both Walkup Robinson and Open Space Committee have already approved this as well, right? So.
Yes.
Right. I really have no further questions on it.
Sean? This is Paul.
Did you want to?
I just want to follow up a little bit. I walk by there all the time, and I do think that drop off is precipitous, and I don't really see how you make parking there, but I haven't looked at every inch of it that there's some way in, but it looks like it's, that would just be, it seems unrealistic to put parking there to me without Jeeps or something, I don't know, but without a lot of fill. Maybe we have the fill right nearby. And then I'm bothered by the price, obviously, because, we have this appraisal, which also considers all those alternative uses theoretically, and, with a developer and all that. And so it feels a little bit to a gun to our head that all these scary things that might happen. And I agree, I'd love to have that property, and, and that's what these funds are for. But I guess the next time I'm asked to help fund an appraisal, I'm going to be very skeptical, like, why are we wasting our money if we just ignore it? Thanks.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's a negotiation, right? So although it's appraised at something, they've been marketing it for much higher than that, and have clearly been trying to sell it. This really isn't a situation where, hey, they just wanted to sort of hand this over to the town. They're, I think, trying to maximize their value for the property, it looks like. And so, but, all right.
I can assure you we wanted it for less and tried.
Is there any chance before the special town meeting that there'd be, some of the information you're talking about would happen in executive session, which, totally understandable in a negotiation. But would we have any access to more information before town meeting, or is this going to be it? That might assuage my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would want to know kind of what kind of information you're looking for. Certainly now that we've finished negotiations, there's more information available.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I knew there were competitive bidders, or that there was something afoot, that maybe that wouldn't have come out in that negotiation either. But I feel like we're really in a vacuum as far as the market value, other than a big conflict, and an asking price means nothing.
I have a follow-up question, Sean, if I could.
Sure.
Does anybody know what the average sale price for a building lot in Westborough is now? Does anybody happen to know? What does a building lot go for in the real estate market right now?
Well, it would depend on the land. That a lot of that land is not suitable for building homes, if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is $34,000 an acre, and I thought building lots, which don't have to be a full acre, do they? Are at least twice that much, or maybe more. I haven't seen what land's going for now in Westborough.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. They're not building lots, but yeah, point well taken.
Yep.
Jody, I think the lot, I don't recall the exact amount, but across the street from this, so on the even side, just above the school, if you will, went for a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
And I don't know the lot size offhand.
Right, and you contrast it with $34,000 an acre here. Anyway, I don't think it's outrageous, and I know not all the land is buildable.
Right, I'm presumably an appraiser. We paid $25,000 for an appraisal that stepped every inch of it and figured out how many building lots theoretically, practically could be fit, and figure that all into their calculations. Otherwise, I still don't know why they exist. But.
Yeah, I would say that we did. The appraisal was very comprehensive and had a number of different scenarios that were presented to us. Again, it was, to your point, there's a lot of what ifing in terms of what could be, what couldn't be, and then to some extent, if you will, I guess the question certainly for me personally was, do you wait for someone else to apply one of the what ifs, which would take precious open land that, again, I'm not a conservation person, but Jordan has walked it and has, speaks to really the natural beauty of it. Some of the trails that are there that require, to Andrew's question earlier, I know he was talking about parking more specifically, but it sounds like there are just natural trails there that people, ready access, be able to use. It's not like, there has to be any clearing or anything like that. So I think it was really a question for me of, do you let this pristine piece of property go to potential development? And then what's the fair price to pay for it? And once we got through that whole process of understanding the value of it and the potential downside, it was no question. Again, I'm going to kind of reiterate actually something, Lee, to her credit, Lee Emery, it's like a 100-year purchase for the town. This is one of those, this is something we don't want to lose the opportunity at.
And I also just want to add that the town does not have a right of first refusal on this property. So if it were to go to another buyer, there would be no required sort of intervention by the town.
No allowed.
What's that?
no allowed intervention. We don't have the right.
You're right. I mean, depending on where you're at. I mean, certainly we've been watching this property. But if someone were to come in and make a deal, it would be too late.
So I went online, the beauty of Google simultaneous to the meeting, and found a 6-acre vacant lot off of Route 9 for $50,000, which would put this at 5 million or more, in comparable rates.
Nope.
And that
Right,
lot
it's sort of,
is buildable though,
yeah, it's tough.
But
It's
you know,
tough to decide that's apples to apples, but yes.
right.
Yeah, we don't actually have and mind you, I'm in favor of this purchase, and I think the price concerns me, but I'm in favor of it as it is. But we actually don't have a hypothetical in terms of what if somebody else got it. This has been on the market for years. I think I've heard it said. There's for whatever reason, there's a package of disincentives for people to have paid $3 million, $5 million, $6 million for it. And what each of those reasons beyond us and different for everybody who's looked at it. But I think that there is a risk, but I don't think it's a significant risk that somebody would swoop in suddenly where they haven't swooped before, unless the seller decides to do something different with the price.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, and I mean, we can just go back and forth on this, but I think there are, building opportunities are getting fewer in Westborough, and so at some point, somebody would take a risk on this piece of property.
And
Right.
Similarly, the opportunity to save open land is getting fewer and fewer as well. So this seems like a real 100-year purchase to have it be an open land and just be in the center, well, not the center of town, but in town.
Right.
Without,
There are,
without getting
Yep.
specific, I would say that there were people courting the sellers certainly earlier this year in the colder months. But again, Andrew, to your point, it has been on the market for several years. So it's a question of, when does the town take that opportunity? Is it the right price? Are we getting the right value? I can say that this was not a quick, kind of shotgun decision. Lots of back and forth and, scenarios played out.
are people prepared to vote on this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So then we need a motion.
I move that we vote to support, to recommend Article 1, land acquisition of 31 to 33 Eli Whitney Street to a special town meeting in September.
Do we have a second?
Bradley, second.
Second. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we'll do a voice vote. Ms. Hensley,
Yes.
Mr. Hugel,
Yes.
Mr. Beretti,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Bradley, yes.
Ms. Blumberg,
Blumberg, yes.
and Keough, yes. So we are 6-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All
much for
right.
your questions and your support.
Well, thanks for coming before us.
Christine Shelby, before you go, okay, can I just like to talk to Kristen Shelby for a minute when you have a chance?
Can I just ask what happened to the decision about the special town meeting for this?
So we're just completing the survey, so we're waiting for that timeline. That's why we haven't set the date yet.
From the sellers, right?
Right.
Survey of the land?
I'm sorry?
Survey of the land or survey of people about special town meeting?
Oh, survey of the land. Survey of the land. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I was going to clarify that because it did sound like, well, we're serving people at one time.
sorry.
No, no.
Well, it's fun when words have multiple meanings. So is there any possibility of rolling this into the next, the regular town meeting as opposed to having a separate one article town meeting?
So one of the things that we committed to was moving quickly.
Okay.
So that's why we're considering the special town meeting, but also there's a expiration date, I guess, on the purchase and sale agreement, and it's in November. And so one concern that I have, and I'm sure we all sort of share it as we look towards the fall and COVID, is that if we were to have to postpone the October town meeting, we wouldn't want it to go beyond that date.
Got it.
And we wouldn't want this to then force us to meet also.
Right.
Right.
No, good. That's been considered, Beth. Great question. I'd like to package it in. I remember from when we had our last special town meeting, Ms. Hensley pointing out not to, if you will, not abuse, but not to overuse the benefit of a special town meeting.
Well, also, plus in this time of COVID, the amount of work that just has to happen to orchestrate it, I will recommend it be a Saturday during, a Saturday midday outside, depending on what the rules are. But, that's a separate problem.
Yeah.
So hopefully everything's good.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in while Christy and Shelby, you're here. I'll certainly come talk to the selectmen if you're interested or whatever, but I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be talking to the Board of Health a week from Wednesday, so the 26th. And in addition to getting their feedback about the June town meeting like we had, I was going to ask them in terms of, how is the town doing in terms of having a special town meeting for this or the October one or what have you. And as Beth just said, because we don't exactly know what the prospects of, having to use and or clean the school and setting up 2 or 3 rooms in the school is problematic. But we also have to worry about the battle of the mosquitoes. That before you get fixated on a particular date or time, we, as Beth said, we may want to consider a Saturday afternoon when the mosquitoes wouldn't be out. Because if it's going to just be a one article town meeting, the finance committee's report could have all the maps and we wouldn't really have to do much in terms of projection, and we could just have the discussion because everybody could be given a copy of the map. So I know it's the selectmen's bailiwick to figure out when and where, but I wanted to throw that as a possibility just to make it easier to not use a lot of resources between the town and the schools, and maybe just to see how the town does with an outdoor town meeting. We have to worry about the weather, obviously, but it's always something.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you both for joining.
Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.
All right, pardon me. So I reviewed the agenda and then I immediately reorganized it and skipped over our first item.
I motion to make.
Yes, please go ahead, Jody.
We're moving to new officers for FY21 Vice Chair. I would like to nominate Michael Beretti to be Vice Chair of the Advisory Finance Committee for the coming year.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Beth.
Michael, you seconded.
I think I better abstain on this one. Uh-oh.
Supposed to vote for someone who's not here.
We'll take a voice vote. Ms. Hensley,
Yes.
Mr. Hugel,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Bradley, yes.
Ms. Bloomberg,
Blumberg, yes.
Mr. Beretti,
Abstain.
abstain. Mr. Keogh, yes. 501.
Thank you all. I hope I can live up to
Thank
your
you.
expectations.
Congratulations and thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
you,
Now,
Jody.
go ahead, Mike. Yeah. So since we're talking about the committee, I just wanted to, I know I informed you via email, and I just wanted to let you know, I'll make a personal introduction at the beginning of the next meeting. But since the last meeting, I did appoint Melanie Board for the 1-year unexpired term from Jim Driscoll. And she knew at the time I appointed her that there were some commitments in August, and it just turned out that this was one of the weeks when she couldn't be here. But she is
Right.
ready, willing, and able to serve, and I'll look forward to having her introduce herself at the next meeting. And I wanted to let you know I'm still looking for and talking to people, but also still looking for anybody for the 2 years unexpired term from Terry who'd like to retire from the board. So I'm not so close that I wouldn't take another name. So I'm talking to one person and waiting to see whether they think they're going to have time with their job commitment. But they're also willing to wait for more time if I find somebody else. So if anybody either listening or if any of you have any people to suggest I speak with, while I also sort of work around my own network, just wanted to let you know that I'm hoping to make that appointment soon, but not sooner than having a good quality candidate. And I'll thank you for your patience while you wait for me to find that good quality candidate.
All right. John, thank you. Yes, Melanie let me know that she wasn't going to be able to make it tonight. All right. Let's see. Next, also on the agenda was the fall meeting town dates, and I'd sent out a spreadsheet. And I wanted to confirm that I had the holidays correct on here. And today being the 17th, with the fall town meeting currently scheduled for October 19th. And with multiple holidays, I was thinking we may want to try and start August 31st. Labor Day is late this year. And even if the warrant isn't available and things by that time, we had a number of items that we wanted to discuss, I think, early on in the fall. And so maybe we could put a couple of them on that agenda and start sort of, with a running head start. Beth, I saw Rosh Hashanah is the weekend of the 19th and 20th is the fast, but it's then celebrated on the 21st, correct?
Mixing up holidays. So Rosh Hashanah starts with services on Friday night. And then it continues all day Saturday and Sunday. That's Rosh Hashanah. Okay. So Friday, September 18th through September 20th. And then Yom Kippur is a few days, like 10 days later on September 27th, which I'm like trying to do multiple calendars to have the date right. So hang on a second. Because that one's the fast and that's a weekend as well. I mean, well, actually,
gotcha.
The Monday I wouldn't be available on the 28th.
Okay. Okay. So that's why I want to confirm. So I can make the 21st available. I saw the 28th was a holiday on the school calendar.
Yeah, the 20th is definitely the fast. But
okay.
Yeah.
But the 21st could be available.
21st is totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I will make that update. Thank you. And then Columbus Day is the 12th. I mean, I don't know how much it matters now if town offices are closed. I guess we could maybe still, if we need to, possibly meet that day.
Start referring to it as something besides Columbus Day.
Oh, yeah.
In order to be PC. So.
Right.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is technically, legally, anything changed yet?
I don't think so, but it may between now and that day.
That
day.
Right. We got June 19th already.
Yes.
Right. So, and then the special fall town meeting. So, but I guess, as we get closer to that fall town meeting date, I think it depends on how many items are on this warrant. I mean, this warrant could be pretty exhaustive. So we'll see, and maybe we'll have to just add in some other dates. But this looked to me to be kind of a, our usual Monday, Wednesday minus holiday. Monday, Thursday, minus holidays.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure, Mike.
Are we going to get any indication of what our projected financial position is going to be in the run-up to the town meeting? And I think that's going to determine the scope of the warrant as well. We
Yeah.
should be asking for that.
Yes, and I don't think they have anything definitive yet, but I think they've been hearing positive things from the state. Like the state does not want to cut, what they're providing to towns and school systems. But I don't know that they would say anything's, certain yet. So, yeah, hopefully by that meeting on the 31st, we have a good idea of exactly what that's going to look like.
Yeah, they
Plus
should be
revenue.
doing, I'm sorry, Sean, they should be doing
Nope.
some projections on tax revenue. And it would seem to me that that's pretty crucial for us to know, in addition to whatever funds the state are going to supply, for us to be able to make recommendations. So I don't, do you think you could reach out to Christie and see what they're planning in terms of projections?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
And similarly, I think we're going to need to be in touch with the school committee to find out what they've had to do to juggle. This is part of liaison report, but they're going with, a school delay that is happening across the state, a hybrid model, lots of stress, trying to juggle a lot of parts and pieces.
Yes, and I know there have been multiple meetings. The school committee lately, we had to bump channels tonight because they had a meeting this evening.
Which
as well.
Which is why I have no video now.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a lot of information that we need to gather in order to make our decisions about the budget this fall and any of the warrant articles.
Yeah, can I request that the police fire department liaisons reach out to them and find out if there were any unintended expense costs or savings that happened, based on life is very different when you're around downtown Westborough right now. Are they saving money because people aren't working in those office buildings, or do they have just as many but other expenses?
If I recall, those are 2 liaison positions that are vacant right now.
Yep.
And we're going to be considering who volunteers and who fills those liaison positions between now or on August 31st.
Fair enough.
Yes.
I just thought I'd ask.
Yep. No, these are all good questions, I think, and things we need to figure out.
Now,
So,
stupid one, is the DPW affected by COVID and, in a way that isn't obvious to me? Because there are other big budget.
I think, I would expect at some point in the next month, everybody's going to come before us and we can ask them all those questions.
Okay.
so Sean, what are you thinking about for dates right now, at least, so we could pencil them in someplace?
Yeah. So I think the items that we want to discuss. So if I go to actually the meeting minutes,
Yep.
if I go to the bottom of the meeting minutes, here, we had future draft agenda items in Mike's minutes, and we had Ed Bain's updated paper. I think, we would review that beforehand and then discuss it with Ed and get his thoughts and on that. I think I would consider that for the 31st if he was available, just because we know we'd be able to get that discussion in if we didn't have a warrant or other items. So, and it's something we want to do. I'll take thoughts on that. And then we could also go through the town staffing study at that meeting and really just knock those two items out. And that would be probably a couple hours right there. The capital equipment planning process, the Board of Selectmen, I believe, is voting on an update to that tomorrow, where it's sort of a more comprehensive one-pager with supporting documentation that every department would have to complete related to their project request. So once the selectmen vote on that tomorrow, we could get that update next week and give them our feedback on it. What's happening with the library? I mean, I'm wondering, has sort of all that sort of slowed down with the, even though those funds were allocated. We get a Pulte update, and then some of these other ones, and we'll discuss our committee assignments next meeting as well. So why don't we do Ed Bain's paper, the town staffing study, and we will discuss committee assignments next time, and then we can push some of those to the meeting after that, which would be the 3rd, that same week, if people are available.
Yeah. I can be available.
Would you like to just plug them in, Sean, while we're looking here? And plug them into a date, and then if we have to change them because other things come up, we could. Like, if the could we talk about the capital equipment planning process on the 3rd?
And the library.
Okay.
Because I definitely know what the library people are thinking, because, I'm sitting here thinking the town doesn't know what its finances are, but they could have something else going on in their heads, like, oh, here's an opportunity. I want to try and be not on the same page, but aware.
So, Sean, I have a question. You made a comment just a few minutes ago about you expect that the special fall town meeting is going to have a pretty robust warrant. Are you getting information about numbers of warrants, and we're going to have to revisit things that dropped off?
I have not gotten those indications yet. I guess are they going to put forward everything that they passed over at the annual town meeting, and then do they then add the usual sort of fall town meetings items as well? I guess is what I was thinking. But I will try and see what I can get in terms of a draft before our meeting on the 31st, if Christy has any ideas. And I believe there is also, and I don't know if it would be for this fall town meeting, there was a potential planning board project or proposal related to, is it the Connector Road area? I think they're going after a $2 million grant. I think it's maybe to try and make another connection to 495, or basically improve the traffic flow through there. But I don't know if that's far enough along.
I'm the liaison to them, and they've been meeting on that, but that's being paid by the developer, and then they're jointly going after the grant to help divert those funds from the developer to something else within the park that would also be beneficial to the citizen, to us, maybe, the hiking. I don't know what the other, but my understanding is they're going ahead with that either way, and it doesn't take any town funding to do that.
Gotcha. So it might not be a vote on it. Okay.
I have a question on timing, and that is, even though we don't have a budget as we do in the, in the spring, if a lot of these warrant articles are being considered to be brought back and others, would it make sense to have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen as we did for the budget, instead of everyone presenting to both and other committees, you know, in succession. And also it was more, I think we found it was more efficient to do it all at once instead of many meetings. Something to think about.
No, I think you're right. And I don't know if every fall it would make sense, but it might very much make sense this fall.
Right.
Because usually we don't discuss the budget in the fall, but I think we, you know, really do need to discuss the budget in the fall to see if we are on track.
True.
So,
Yeah, I would imagine it'd be some kind of contingent budget based on either, you know, good revenues coming in, or it's got to be scaled back to some degree as far as the hotel and meals taxes and maybe real estate.
Right.
There's something else that's come up. I don't know if any of you saw the community advocate from July 31st, where apparently we are starting what they call the Complete Streets program with the Mass Department of Transportation. Now, a lot of it is generated, a lot of the funding is generated through grants, but, you know, based on our experience with the fire department and the new hires, where we had to pick up the balance of the funding of the new hires after 2 or 3 years, I have a feeling that this could be something akin to that. And they went ahead and did this without any indication to us that they were making commitments that might come back to require us to spend more money.
gotcha. And it's called Complete Streets?
Complete Streets program. It was published in the Community Advocate on July 31st.
Who is the they? Selectmen?
The Department of Public Works, and
Oh.
I have a suspicion, I have to go through it again, but the Board of Selectmen seemed to be, yep, it was presented to the Board of Selectmen in March, and they enthusiastically authorized the submission of the grant proposal to apply to the program. Now, that's all well and good, and if we could do something like this, it would be great, but are we going to have to spend more money on top of it? You know, on
Right.
top of what the grants are going to provide. And I think we need to have some answers to that at some point.
No, that sounds like a good thing to bring up. So is this like a sidewalk program?
It's sidewalks, biking, transit, motorized vehicles. It's supposed to provide safe and accessible options for all modes of travel.
Is this
for
a
people of
design?
all ages and abilities.
Is this funding for design?
Designing streets with certain principles in mind. Yes.
Yeah. This is,
Gotcha.
I mean, when we were discussing, you know, the potential for a pedestrian and bike trail, and then there's a lot of interest in completing sidewalks, the town more walkable. The Complete Streets funding has been under discussion, you know, during all of that activity. But I agree, you know, if this committee would like an overview of how Complete Streets works into that rather broad agenda, it would be nice to know.
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes there's unintended consequences of, you know, the initial fee that we should at least know so we can forecast correctly.
There's always unintended consequences.
So I think John had just posted that the town sent something out about it in the middle of July. I'll see if I can find something on the
Okay.
town website about it and forward it around to. You know, it is if on the homepage.
I actually posted the PDF too in the chat.
Yeah, news here. Complete Streets program now underway. Thank you, Jen.
Welcome.
And there's a link to what are complete streets and
Most communities
cool.
are happy to get this money.
as long as there's no strings attached, right?
Yeah.
So I think we can go through that, and if we can definitely follow up with the DPW on it and just get their thoughts. And, if it is as
Right.
great as
I mean,
as it sounds.
it looks like it might be a planning, and then we have to go in and find the money to do the projects that they recommend.
Yeah. So, I suggest we read up and then we can bring in the DPW and ask them follow-up questions about it. Especially if there's going to be something related to this potentially on the fall town meeting.
Mhm.
All right, so let me review here. So I've got for our next meeting on the 31st, see if we can get Ed Bain to come in and we'll review his paper, do the town staffing study, and we'll do committee assignments.
Yep.
On the 3rd, we'll discuss the capital equipment planning updates. And we can get somebody in to discuss the library project, or,
Yep.
maybe we can find out if it's worth getting somebody in,
Yeah,
if there's any change.
I noticed I'm still on the list as a liaison to the library. So I can reach out and ask what the status of that is and figure out if there's enough news to bring someone in to talk to us on the 3rd.
Thank you, Jody.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other 2 items that were on the list, I think, were a Pulte update, which we would definitely want to get early in one of our early meetings. And I guess the first one that maybe we have another item for Christy.
Yeah.
She can get a couple things. And then there was discussion sometime back about shifting surplus funds and sort of stopping that exercise and closing projects and then creating, funding projects from scratch and not transferring funds.
Mm-hmm.
And there was discussion about it at some point. I think we just want to go back and make sure that didn't just fall off everybody's radar, because I think it sounded like something that the selectmen were supportive of.
If you're inviting Christy in to speak on September 10th, she could probably also speak to that issue on September 10th. And I don't know if it goes as far as having a new, recommending or asking if the Board of Selectmen are interested in policy, in setting policy around open warrant articles. It's something we need to learn about procedurally what happens next.
Yep. All right. Yeah. So that's the 31st, the 3rd, and then the 10th. We could try and get to everything that's on this list of items we had that we wanted to follow up on.
Yep. And then complete streets, we haven't assigned a date to.
Right.
Someone who's reaching out to DPW on that. Is that Hank?
I think it is.
Okay. Okay. And that's just a nice to know thing too. We don't know that that's not connected to any imminent spending.
Right.
Okay.
If you'd like, if the committee is okay with it, I can reach out to Ed Bain.
Thank you.
And let him know. That could be, if you've had a chance to read this paper before, it could be a rather complex discussion.
Can you get a copy of the paper to us?
Pardon me?
Can you get a copy of the paper you're referring to us?
I think it's still at our webpage.
Yeah, it's on our webpage. And in
Okay.
fact, Ed updated it several months ago. But I'll make sure that we get a copy of the current paper. And also I'll let Ed know that, we've got an hour time limit on this. And if we feel that we need to go further, we can do that at perhaps another meeting. Because we do have that staffing study is pretty complex as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can see if we take too long with one, although I think by then by the 31st, we may have a better idea of how rough the rest of the fall is going to be. So, yeah, hopefully we can get through both of those. That'd be great. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
All right. So that's future draft agendas.
Great.
Any liaison reports? And
The school committee met today. They approved the school departments with a lot of stress because everybody's worried and nobody wants to, cause a problem. They approved the school department's plan, which involves a delay of the start of school, which was approved by the state. So there's 170 days of school this year instead of 180. It's a hybrid. I don't even know that I've been listening to all the meetings, but I'm scared to speak to it well. It's a hybrid model is what they're starting with. They have a backup fully remote model. They have a fully on model, and they're going to try and do the best by the students of Westborough that they possibly can. I think for families that don't feel comfortable having their child attend school, I think they've got a remote version. They did have to have discussions, and they brought the teachers in for the discussions about what the teachers themselves are comfortable with. So I think the schools are going to be in as good of shape as a school in the state of Massachusetts can be in terms of really thoughtful work to execute a plan. There's going to be I was want to say where I was going. What? There's some potential there's a lot of grant writing that they've been doing for PPEs and for transportation, all sorts of things that they could find grants for. And some of those grants, the money will actually go to the town, not the schools. So there'll be the normal amount of like juggling in terms of that. But they've applied for at least 4 or 5 grants that I've heard. So they're working hard to try and offset the costs. I think there's some additional technology costs this year. And the major part of the plan is that students will go to school 2 days a week in alternating groups. And I'm not exactly sure through all the decisions what the final decision about Fridays was. Fridays may be saved to counterbalance Monday holidays to make sure that the balance of number of days is always equal. They may be saved for professional development. They may be part of the hybrid. That I'll have to be honest, there were enough plans and versions. I'm not sure what the final decision is. So I don't want to speak to it too much.
yeah, it's been pretty fluid. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah. And they've been in strong consultation with the Board of Health. So that's also been going on.
Any other updates?
So also on the school side, but on the school building committee side, we continue to meet every couple of weeks. The majority of the bids are in and have been approved. There were some early gains where we thought we were going to come out ahead, but more recently there have been a number of packages that end up coming over cost. So we continue to have to tweak what the deliverable of the school will look like, but not so much so that the majority of the plans aren't still well in place. So we're now past the 90-day or the 90% commitment. For those who don't know, they already have shovels in ground, and they've already been moving a lot of dirt, and they already have walls up, and they're starting to put concrete down. There is a camera that oversees the compound that can be accessed from the school website for those who want to take a look and see what's happening on an ongoing basis there. They have, I think, at last check, around 41 people who are working on site regularly. and at this time they are still managing the traffic and the parking so as not to be a significant imposition, although there is a concern as you look ahead that there are requirements for contractors to carpool to get to the site once the number of people really pick up. And obviously carpooling is something that I think is part of phase 3, part 2, or whatever the part that has been postponed. So they're not sounding an alarm on it yet, but there is a concern about getting folks to the facilities without an undue imposition to the neighborhood. And I think the biggest surprise that may have come up, and it was always a wild card, has to do with a fee that Nat Grid is assessing the school to be able to push electricity back into the grid. And that came out somewhere in the neighborhood of north of $500,000 when it was not expected to be nearly that high. But that's the result of what Nat Grid has to do to harden the infrastructure for the change that's coming with regards to the new facilities at Fales, which, as a reminder, is supposed to be a zero-emission school. So still very actively meeting. There will come a time in the near future where we'll be meeting to look at materials and make selections for materials and designs. And I say we're meeting, and I'm there to be part of quorum and be part of all that, but really Amber and Marianne Stannard, who's the principal at Fales, are much more closely aligned to the choices and the details. So when it comes to fashion, anybody who knows me can rest assured I have almost no say whatsoever on the fashion choices being made for that school. And that is a good thing. So that is the update from the school building committee.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
I have a Board of Health mini one, which is
Mhm.
that we, obviously the Board of Health is very actively meeting on a regular basis, and they're now watching not only COVID numbers but EEE and West Nile numbers. So we're still open in the evenings, but be prepared for a dusk to dawn if the mosquitoes if infected mosquitoes are identified closer to town.
Okay. Thank you. Any public reminders?
Wear your mask.
Of August, wear your mask. And I will take a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Second, Beth, thank you. Let's see, we'll go around the room. Ms. Hensley.
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Beretti.
Yes.
Mr. Hugel.
Yes.
Mr. Bradley.
Bradley, yes.
Ms. Bloomberg.
Bloomberg, yes.
And Keogh, yes. All right, everyone, thank you very much.
Thank
I will
you.
see you on the 31st.
Thank you, guys.
Fair. Nice job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Mhm.
Hey,
Bye.
congratulations, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
By the way, there's Andrew, there's an expression about men and design and fashion. Men have definite opinions but limited capability.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, all.